Welcome to another episode of Bright Headed Publishing Podiobook Book Club. I am your host, Kelly Morgan. Today I had the opportunity to meet and speak with author David Anderson. He wrote a book titled Dark Night of the Soul. It is about him finding out about his clinical depression and how he learned how to cope and deal with it. He wrote the book in hopes of helping others. I'm glad that he decided to share his story and become a member of the book club. He is our newest member. Welcome to the podcast, our newest book club member, author David Anderson. David, thank you so much for being on the podcast and being a member of the book club. Welcome. How are you?
Great. Happy to be here.
I'm so happy that you are here. We're going to talk about your book, and we'll get into all of that, Dark Night of the Soul, and we'll talk more about that. But I always like to start out and ask, authors how they became authors. Did you always know that you wanted to be a writer? Did you kind of just stumble into it one day? How did that happen?
Well, I didn't always know it. If you want to go back to the beginning, it was like my senior year of college, I think. And this, I don't know how to explain it, but I was really religious and I prayed a lot, and it seemed like once in prayer, this story kind of welled up in me, and I just grabbed a pen and paper and started writing. Well, that might tell you this was a while ago. It was this short story based on the woman who washed Jesus' feet. And when it was done, I looked at it, and to me, it looked like the most perfect thing I'd ever created. And I think I knew then I had to be a writer.
And have you been writing ever since?
Mostly off and on, not always publishing, but I've got a lot of still got a backlog of material I'm trying to figure out what to do with, and I try to keep up writing, although I've been preparing something actually. I got interested in cryptocurrency recently, and I've been doing research on that, and I'm thinking I'll write something related to that at some point.
Nonfiction?
Yeah, so I write fiction and nonfiction, and this is my first nonfiction book. I self-published it because it was originally a blog, and I wasn't sure how publishers would, if they would want to take that on. They usually want material that's never been published anywhere else.
Right. So let's take a step back. So you started writing, you say, when you were a senior in college. Fast forward, you're now a published author. Mm-hmm. How did that happen? What made you decide that this particular book or this particular thing that you wrote was going to be the one that you take to that next level and actually publish it?
I had the material already because I've been writing. Well, I wrote about it in a blog. I didn't know what to do with the blog at first. Started actually in 2015, and I just kind of blogged about whatever was on my mind, and I tried to post once a week. I wasn't getting a lot of followers, even though I was happy with what I was writing. As I wrote, though, a theme started to emerge about recovery from depression. See, I was diagnosed with clinical depression a little over 20 years ago, actually. And so the book, the blog post, that theme, I started to focus on that theme more and more. And so I have this collection of blog posts. I eventually took the blog down, actually. But I have this material, was like, I want to do something with it. And I know depression is something a lot of people struggle with. And I thought maybe if I could get it into a book, it might be able to help others who are struggling with it.
So you decided to go ahead and self-publish. What was that like? What was that self-publishing journey like?
Yeah, it was... It wasn't my favorite thing to do a lot of times. I think there's a reason why most writers write and have a publisher, because they don't want to do the work of publishing. They want to write. But I was kind of in a position where it felt like that was the only option. So I got some coaching. I found someone to coach me through the process, collected the blog posts that dealt with what I call the intersection of faith and depression. And that's where the title Dark Nights of the Soul comes from. And so I had that, I put that together, wrote an introduction and conclusion, and found someone to do the book cover. And I had to, you have to be able to format the book too for it. So I found a service where you can buy a book template, and that put it in a format that looked good in the book I wanted to publish. I did it as an ebook first, but I wanted to have a real book, paperback. So I went through Kindle publishing first. You can upload your files there for free and put it on the marketplace. And then they have a paperback option too. So I went through them to convert it to a paperback. I also once I had the paperback, I gave the files to Ingram Spark as well, so that it could be marketed to bookstores and libraries.
So it's a process, obviously, to get all of that done, and it took time, but now the book is out there, it's published. So yes. How did you go about marketing the book?
Well, this is one way. I've been on a few podcasts so far, that, I looked for podcasts where I might have the theme of my book would match. I've enjoyed that a lot, actually. And I planned on maybe going around to college campuses to speak, see if I could speak on the topic, but then COVID came along. And but I will be fully vaccinated in about a couple of weeks, so I might start looking at that again, especially since I saw a story today on how college students are having a really tough time with their mental health with, trying to adjust on school with COVID and the restrictions that come with that. And
it's a lot for anybody. And it's something that has changed the way that we live and that the way we do things. And it's a big adjustment, and some adjustments are harder than others. So anytime anybody has any insight or help that they can give, I'm all for it, because it can be incredibly hard. So with that being said, let's talk about your book. Tell me about it. What is it about? I know you said it's the blog and how you were feeling, but, how did you think that it was going to help others?
Well, the way I found out, it really took me by surprise. Shock, really. When I was diagnosed, as the therapist explained it to me, I realized I'd been living with depression my whole life and didn't know it. Because, there are two different types of depression that I talk about clinical and situational. Situational can happen to anyone. You know, you go through a rough patch in life, you know, the stress of not being able to go to class or go to work or just have a normal life over time that wears on you. That's situational depression, things like that. Clinical depression is a condition of the brain. And, you know, you've only got one brain. It's with you wherever you go. So when I found out my depression was actually a condition of the brain, it's like, so I've been living with the same brain my whole life, and I didn't know. I mean, there were times I really had some severe depression that I went through, but it never occurred to me that it was actually a condition of the brain. I thought maybe it was a failure of my faith, or that a weakness of character, or that I didn't have a strong will, or that, you know, blaming myself for it in all sorts of ways. And when I found that, it was a shock, and it was shame at first, because I thought, I'm a Christian, this shouldn't happen to me. But as I worked through it, I came to realize this wasn't my fault. When you're born with a condition, you know, some people are born with like a heart murmur. Mm-hmm. This is sort of like being born with a brain murmur. And, you know, I thought one thing I thought I could help with is I could describe my experience before and after, and if someone reads my experience and thinks, this sounds familiar, this sounds like my life, this sounds like what I've experienced, then my advice is go get tested, because if I hadn't got tested, I never would have known, and I would still think, you know, it was because of my failure, or
right, or your, as you said, your lack of faith or thereof. But my question is what most people, and I'm not an expert, but it seems to me that depression has a stigma to it, right? So people won't necessarily seek out help. So how do you encourage those to seek help that maybe are thinking it's just them, and to go get tested to maybe find out if it is clinical depression?
Well, yeah, I think you're right about the stigma, although there are more and more people speaking out. I've seen when a celebrity speaks out on it, I think that helps put a face on it that helps people realize this is not like you're crazy or something to be ashamed of. You know, the way he explained it to me was, for a diabetic, they have a pancreas that can't produce enough insulin. There's no shame in that. For me, I have a brain that can't produce normal levels of most likely serotonin. Could be serotonin, dopamine, or norepinephrine. Those are the big three of what I call happy chemicals. You know, your brain produces happy chemicals and it produces stress chemicals. And if you're not getting enough happy chemicals, the stress chemicals will overwhelm it. And that's a condition of this physical organ. Just like your if a pancreas is defective, that's not any shame on you. And what I hope people get from my story is mental illness needs to be treated the same way. And I hope too I can help people see if they need to seek professional help, and what to do if they do think so.
And I think it's important that people realize that they're not alone. That's another way I think that your book helps too, because sometimes it can be incredibly lonely, or we have all probably felt some way and thought nobody on earth has ever felt the way that we have felt. And that is probably not true.
Yeah.
Right? Probably not true. But knowing that you're not alone, I think is a big way to help people. And I think it's commendable to share your experiences. Because it really does help others.
Yeah, and before then, the kind of coping mechanisms I had just ultimately did not work, which, there was like, pray more, do more Bible study, which I still do Bible study. It's one of my favorite things to do, actually, but it's with a totally different mindset now. And one of the things I mentioned in the book is I have 4 principles for recovery from depression or mental illness. One, oh gosh, I'm forgetting them now. What was the first one? Let's see. Well, one of them is God is for your recovery, not against it. I spent a lot of my spiritual life just thinking how disappointed God was with me. And this is why God isn't blessing me, because I don't have enough faith, because I question too much, because, there's all these blessings God wants to give me, but I have too much doubt. And that has nothing to do with it. It's like, it wasn't that at all. I've come to see how God answers our prayers is a matter of God's will, and it's not something, many times we just won't know why God does or doesn't answer prayers. It doesn't mean your faith is defective, or and God is love. And if God is love, God wants us to be able to recover from these experiences. And we go through tough experiences, I believe, to build character. And but God, I look back now and I understand God was with me through all of it, even when and God loved me throughout, even when I thought he hated me.
You know what? It's really cool to listen to you talk, because I think a lot of people feel sometimes like that. Like you said, I believe all prayers are answered. It may not be the answer that you want or that you think you want, but all prayers are answered. It just may not be what you thought it was going to. It never is. A lot of times what you ask for or what you want isn't what you need. And sometimes we just can't see that,
Right. Yeah. Sometimes, we ask for things that really it looks like it would be good for us, but really
probably not.
It's some things I can say it's a good thing God didn't give me that when I asked.
Right. It's probably not, but you have to, but that's where the faith comes in, right?
Right.
That's where the faith comes in. David, if somebody wanted to purchase your book, where would we find it? Or do you have an author page?
I do. My website is davidandersontheauthor.com. And there's a page there you can link up with my books and find out other projects I'm doing. The easiest way is to go to Amazon. It's available in both ebook and paperback. Check with your local library, and if they don't have it, ask them to get it. because I really want to get into libraries too.
Have you thought about an audiobook?
I have. Thing is, it was published a couple of years ago, but I don't know if it makes it too late, but then if I do an audiobook, I could relaunch it maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, I think if you did an audiobook, it would open it up to a whole new audience.
Yeah, that's true. And my sister even said, she doesn't have time to read, but she can listen to audiobooks in her car. So
yeah. So I mean, I just think audiobooks are fantastic, and I love audiobooks. So somebody who I like to read, but I find that I don't have a lot of time to rarely now do I have time to sit down and actually read a book. But right. I can be doing something, washing the dishes and mm-hmm. listening to a book. So I love audiobooks. Something to think about.
Yeah. I've actually, I do have a training to go through. I purchased a while back and didn't follow through on it. Maybe I need to go back and it's supposed to teaches you how to make an audiobook and make the right files for it so that Audible will accept it. So
yeah, and they do offer that now too. Audible mm-hmm. does offer that. So you should definitely look into it. I think you would open up a whole new audience, and it's just another fantastic way to market your book and really get it out there.
Yeah. So, it's something I should have done before, but better late than never. Maybe I'll go ahead and do it. Yeah.
Well, you know what? It's a process. Do you have anything else coming up?
I have a novel I've written, and I've decided I want to get it ready to publish, and I want it, so that should be coming out later this year. I'm going to self-publish that too. I tried pitching it to publishers. I wasn't sure if maybe I kept getting rejected. I eventually got an agent to agree to read it. It's not in his genre, but he said it is ready to publish. It's just that it's kind of a blend, doesn't fit neatly into a category, so the publishers that I spoke to probably just don't know what to do with it.
And that is the beauty of self-publishing.
Yeah.
Right? And so you can get it out there, and you'll just have to figure out the best way to market. Yeah. What's the name of the book?
Right now, I think the title I've been using is Through Fear of Death.
Through Fear of Death. And when do you hope to have it published?
I hope in August. It's historical fiction set in ancient Rome. It's about a gladiator who converts to Christianity. Christianity, like in the first century, I believe, was a non-violent religion. So converting meant he can't fight anymore, which gets him in trouble with his lanista, that's the guy who runs the gladiatorial school, and with some other authorities, and eventually the emperor. But he finds an unexpected ally in his prison guard, and friendship forms between them. And eventually the guard will have to make a choice. Does he do right by his friend or continue to go along with an oppressive system?
Well, you definitely will have to come back when that book is released and come back and tell us about it, and we'll definitely help you promote it.
Yeah, and I learned a few things from this last experience. I think that'll help me do a better job marketing it next time.
Well, fantastic.
But, yeah, I really hope you'll have me back for it too.
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely. Okay. As a member of the book club, you are welcome to come back at any time. So when you get that second book out there, when the novel comes out, definitely reach out to me. We'll definitely make room for you on the schedule and have you come back.
Oh, great. Yeah.
David, it has been a pleasure speaking with you. I appreciate you being a member of the book club and being on the podcast. And like I said, we'll definitely have to have you come back. The book is called Dark Night of the Soul. All of the information will be in the podcast description. David, again, thank you so much.
Thank you. Great talking with you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Bright Headed Publishing Audiobook Book Club. I have been your host, Kelly Morgan. I just wrapped up with author David Anderson. We talked about his book, The Dark Night of the Soul, about his journey to learn about his clinical depression and how he figured out what worked for him and how to cope. And he wrote the book in hope of helping others. If you are interested in checking out the book, you can connect with David at www.davidandersontheauthor.com. All the information will be in the podcast description. If you are looking to promote your book, or maybe you know somebody who wrote a book and think, hey, this might be a good way to promote your book, email me, brightheadedpublishing@gmail.com. Again, that's brightheadedpublishing@gmail.com. Next week, another author, a new member to our ever-growing book club. It is so exciting. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for being a member. Wait to join you next week. But until then, keep writing.